Hi everyone, Grace Bwogi once again from Bwogi Farms. If you are new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Today, I want to share my experience as a goat farmer when I had several goats dying, and honestly speaking, at first I didn't know why, but it is after sharing a lot of information that I got to know what could have been the problem. What happened while I was away, I was on a farm tour somewhere away from the farm for roughly 5 days. I was away, and then I instructed my manager, who is fairly trained, to give some dose to the goats. It is a preventative kind of medicine. What I didn't anticipate, because I thought he's fairly trained, he could read the leaflet in the box of that medicine and be able to dispense the medicine accordingly. But that was not the case. So the following day, he gives me a call and tells me, "Madam, we are having a very serious challenge at the farm. One herd, we have already injected this medicine. Most of the goats are weak. They are breathing hard. Some of them are having froth. Froth, for those of you who don't know froth, this is like a liquid, like foam coming out of the mouth of the goat. Some of them had started having swollen stomachs. Others were bleeding. They were breathing heavily. They were so weak. The situation actually had become stressful within a day. I had to drive from wherever I was, and I came with a few things I thought could help. But in the meantime, I instructed them to get some charcoal, pound some charcoal, and get that powder and mix it in the water so that all the goats could drink. We thought maybe it could have been due to, maybe they could have entered somebody's garden and they could have eaten a poison out there in the garden. And also, I also thought maybe some of them could have eaten a poisonous plant. So as they waited for me to come, I was also trying to call several vets. And they were asking me what is happening. You know, everything that happens here on the farm, so many people are always concerned because they're always looking out for us. From how we came out to be big, from how we came out to be when we are still small up to the time when we are now. So I brought in a number of glucovit, a number of, they are not drugs per se, but supplements. I brought in glucovit, I brought in other multivitamins, the injectables, the oral multivitamins. Some people prescribed I give the goats omo, because usually when goats bloat, we give them omo. Some people prescribed cooking oil. I gave cooking oil. They told me give them a lot of water. I gave them a lot of water. But meanwhile, the goats continued to die. They were under a lot of pain. They would bleed, breathe hardly, and then you see it, the neck bending on one side, and that goat is dying. It was really a very heartbreaking moment for us. My workers were so stressed. The goats are so stressed. And by the way, some of you have not been on farms where such challenges are happening. Usually when such things happen, workers who are so passionate, who are so attached to the animals, they usually fear, they want to leave. Actually, after 2 days of this happening, my manager tendered in his resignation, and I was not blaming him. I begged him to stay to learn a lesson from this, but he couldn't heed, and I didn't stop him from going. But I'll be able to communicate to him and tell him what exactly happened and what he could have done. After administering all those, we called in vets. I called in a vet from another district. He comes in. We administer a lot of multivitamin, in injectable multivitamins. We gave them lots and lots of glucose. We gave them lots and lots of water. The goats are not healing. They are continuing to die. So when this guy comes and he sees the goats, he tells us he suspects there is organ failure because the chests were swelling, like there is a lot of water in between the chests. And then the stomachs were like hard as a stone. And then some of the goats we cut in their stomachs, the intestines were swollen and the dung inside was hard as a stone. This was quite challenging. I could hardly sleep. Some of you can easily see my eye bags. I've not slept, I think, in the last 3 days, I've not slept enough. It was really, 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 really very stressing. Some of my workers brought out their Bibles to pray for the goats because we have several herds. And this herd is managed by 3 people. They came to pray for the goats. Around my village, some villagers came around. They prescribed some herbs, like somebody prescribed I mix bitter leaf and also a herb called the bombo. They told me to mix all those, but nothing worked. Nothing really, really worked. We made several calls, and what was so disheartening that a few of the vets I called from my area, from my district, most of them were not readily available to come. One told me he was in a workshop somewhere in Mubende. One told me he was in a workshop in Mubende. Another told me he was in an interview. So I basically gave up on calling the vets from around my area because they had really disappointed me. And it was not the first time I'd been disappointed, because the last time I imported in 2 pure dopers from South Africa, and one of them had a swollen sheath. I think it's the sheath was so swollen, and I called in our head of veterinary officials in a district, and he sent me several numbers of the people to call to come and help me, but all of them were somewhere so busy. And even when they stopped being busy, nobody bothered to call me again. And eventually I lost that ship. So that is how bad the situation is when you want to farm, especially livestock, in Africa. The extension workers are not readily available, much as government does its best to put them in the localities where they are supposed to do this work, but usually most of them are always doing their own stuff. When the goats started becoming restless, we also became restless. We never slept. Actually, we decided to graze them from the nearby paddock near home, and would always go by and check on them. But sometimes some of them would go back at night with torches to go and look out for them when they are already wincing, and they are so stressed, wincing in a lot of pain. And those that we could get from the grazing grounds, by the time we bring them back home, most of them would die within a few minutes. Honestly speaking, I've lost over 40 goats in a span of 3 days. It's quite a number. That is something I accumulated to around 35 to 40 million in 3 days. They are gone. That is farming for you. But I'm not giving up. I'm just energized to continue farming goats. Averagely, we have been losing between 7 to 8 goats on a daily basis. And so far, we have lost between 35 to 40 goats. It is really stressing. And what we did, we dug a deep hole somewhere 30 to 40 meters away from our goat pens. And we have been carrying the dead goats to that deep hole we dug. Why are we putting those goats in that deep hole to bury them? We do not encourage our workers to eat dead goats. We do not want our farm dogs to eat those dead goats. Why don't we encourage our workers, all the goats, dogs, to eat the dead goats? Because these goats have died of an overdose. When a goat dies of an overdose and somebody else eats that dead goat, it means they are going to have the residue of that drug in their bodies. Usually, as human beings, some of those infections that the goats have, we usually have them as human beings, and we usually use the same drugs. So if you happen to eat a goat which has the same drug as the dead goat you're eating which has the same drug, it means in the future, if you happen to have an infection like that, and that same drug is used on you to be treated, it will be resistant. It will not be able to treat that particular infection. So we do not encourage. Dear farmers, do not allow all your workers or anybody, or do not sell dead animals at your farm, or those animals you are sure that are about to die. Please do not sell them off outside, or do not give them out to be eaten. Bury them or burn them with fuel. It has been a tough week. It has been a tough 5 days at the farm. And we are not giving up, by the way, but we are doing all things possible to ensure that we save these goats and not more goats die at the farm. And we are sure we shall be able to achieve that with time.